Hey there, welcome to the Movie Review Mom YouTube channel. I'm the mom and I do the movie reviews. And before I say anything else, happy Valentine's Day week. Who says you can only celebrate one day, right? Well, today's movie that I'm going to review is called Love and Jane. While this romantic comedy is being featured on the Hallmark Channel through Peacock, the movie can also be streamed on Philo and Fubo. Say that 10 times fast. So happy Valentine's Day week. This movie is one that is a part of the Hallmark's Loveuary in February. Hallmark has a bunch of romance movies, of course, but they also are doing a ton of Jane Austen spin-off type of movies in celebration of this Loveuary month of February. This movie is rated TVG. It's an hour and 30 minutes. And my overall movie review mom grade is probably a B minus. So let me explain why. I'll give you an overview in a nutshell, and then I'll point out things I liked, things I did not like, tips for parents, themes worth talking about, funny lines, interesting lines, and recommendations that are sort of similar. If you like this movie, you'll like these other ones, but you also might like them more than this one. All right, so in a nutshell, the story is about a woman who is a literary enthusiast who works at an ad agency and runs a Jane Austen book club on the side. When she wishes Jane Austen could help her with her life decisions, the famous author materializes and offers tips for love. The story was both written and directed by David Weaver. Let me give you some quick tips for parents. I think kids are going to be extremely bored unless they're already big Jane Austen fans. We see a lot of cleavage. There's some alcohol, no profanity, so yay, and it really is G or family friendly in that regard. Some of the themes that are illustrated very well are love, romance, literature, female support and friendship, Jane Austen's books, of course, marketing, and the value of print books and bookstores versus buying digital versions online. And by the way, one of my books is available for free all this week on Amazon. It's a book for tips for Christian dating ideas. Click in the description below and check out my Instagram feed called Movie Review Mom. But the one you'll really see that one on is Trina Boice, which is my name, where I post whenever my books are offered for free on Amazon. So you'll be able to see that one and get the link there as well. All right, back to this movie. So here's a list of things that I liked about the film. First of all, the diverse cast includes Alison Sweeney, Benjamin Ayres, Kendra Anderson, Adila Dosani, and many more. Many of the characters represent those in Jane Austen's books. And if you're familiar with her books, you will definitely spot these characters. And if you are familiar with Jane Austen's books, then you will definitely spot these symbols of those characters. It's nice to see a romance with a woman who isn't just 20. If you love the famous lines in Jane Austen novels, then I think you're going to enjoy how often they're quoted in this movie. You'll definitely feel a passion for her books. As an author of 31 published books myself, shameless plug, I'm always fascinated by movies about authors and where writers get their inspiration from. And so you'll get to see a little bit about that as our leading lady is also trying to write a novel. Now, all of my books are nonfiction. My brain just thinks in a nonfiction way. However, I'm also an author coach, and I work with a lot of fiction authors. And by the way, if you're ever interested, if you either have already published books and they're not selling and you're wondering why, or you're a brand new writer, you want to get your first book published, reach out to me and I'm happy to offer a complimentary author coaching session. My website is called FromBook2Business.com. And I named it that simply because a lot of times writers don't think of their hobby as a business, and it absolutely is. Usually they realize that at book two. So from book2business.com. Anyway, back to the movie again. The last scene is pretty cute and a wink to the audience about something that Jane Austen says earlier in the film. And so I thought it was a sweet ending. Now, with that praise, there were just a few things that I didn't like or thought could have been done differently. For example, from the very beginning, there's this odd, dusty filter on every scene. And I'm wondering, is that supposed to make it look old-timey, dusty bookshelves and libraries? Or just was it just some weird filter? I don't know. But I kept thinking, is that intentional? For example, there are a lot of scenes where we see light coming in the windows, but it's that filtered, dusty type of light. In that regard, it kind of looked a little bit amateur, unless it was intentional. And because it happened so much, I couldn't decide if it was intentional or just bad mistakes on lighting. I don't know. The dialogue definitely feels stilted. I think it probably sounded good on the page. And then when you translate it to modern day people saying those lines, it just comes across as very stiff and robotic at times. Even there were surprisingly a lot of bad acting moments, and I always feel bad saying that. It takes a really long time before we get to see Jane Austen appear in the film. The actor who plays the Darcy character looked more like a villain than a romantic lead. And I feel terrible saying that as well. I just picture Darcy, well, I think everybody pictures Darcy with dark hair. And so he definitely had that. But I don't know. I was a little surprised to see him as a romantic lead. And again, I apologize. I'm just saying I was surprised. And sadly, partly because of that, I just did not feel any chemistry between the two leads, this leading couple. And especially during their kissing, it looked like two actors making the best of it. And you don't want to be pulled out of a film. You want to be like, oh, finally they're kissing, the romance. And I just didn't feel that. And that's kind of a big downer for a romance, right? There's a side story that kind of halts the pacing, and you're like, oh, is that story more important? Or wait, what's happening? Lily's character, Lily is the main leading lady, she kind of acted like a young, awkward girl rather than an older woman settled in her career who just shouldn't be so awkward about life and interactions with other human beings. And it was sort of odd. I know it's supposed to be cute and funny, but it just seemed odd, probably because of her age. Now, again, I'm comparing her character with these younger 20-year-olds who show up in rom-coms, and they're young, and so they are learning and can be awkward, and it's kind of cute and flirty. And but with her, I was just like, huh, okay. Now, let me share some funny lines and interesting lines with you. Whenever I watch movies, I take notes. And of course, I'm writing down these lines because I want to share them with you so you can get a taste for the dialogue and the script writing ability. So you can see all of them on my written review at moviereviewmom.com. So there's at the very beginning, we see not the first scene, but early on in the movie, we see this leading lady, and she's having dinner with another man named Martin, and he's played by Matthew Kevin Anderson. And she's saying some things, and he says to her, you really are not of this century, are you? And we realize, wow, she is really living in the Jane Austen era, her whole mindset. And she says, well, who wants to be? TikTok is something a clock does. Everything that's wrong with this world started with that first website. And I thought, okay, well, I know some people probably would agree with that, but that wasn't the first website that people started changing. Anyway, I thought it was kind of funny. And then she's talking to somebody and she says, you are so Mr. Collins right now. Now, of course, if you're unfamiliar with Jane Austen, as are several characters in this movie, you don't know what that even means, if it's a compliment or a slam. Anyway, and again, it's just how her life just revolves around Jane Austen and this literature. All right, so here's a line that maybe could be in the funny category as well. So Allison Sweeney's character, the leading lady, is having a conversation with somebody at the bookstore, and she wants to get this book. And he says, "Oh, we're out of this Jane Austen book, but you can get this other book by Jane Austen." And she's so offended, and she says, "You can't just trade out one Jane Austen novel for another. They are all unique." At another time, actually several times in the movie, she will quote something from a Jane Austen novel, and she'll say, "Jane, she has the perfect quote for every occasion." And she often quotes those things. At another point, she says to someone, "Most of Jane's writing is about how you shouldn't be forced to do something you don't want." And which is true, actually. And so while she feels very liberating and wants to do what she wants to do, she's also constrained by a lot of things. And that's a source of frustration for her. Then she tells somebody, "Do anything rather than marry without affection," which of course is a line from one of Jane Austen's books. And she's trying to give advice to a friend who is kind of set up on a date, but she doesn't know if there's love there or not. She kind of gets involved, as Jane Austen characters do. Now, Benjamin Ayre's character is the leading man. And at one point he says, "I guess that's the thing about being a reader, is you kind of get lost in the imaginary life, that it helps you discover what you love in the real world." And I thought that that was true and insightful. And then Alison Sweeney's character at another point with great wisdom says, "I think we can't only look at novels for life lessons. I think novels are trying to tell us we need to figure it out on our own." And maybe those seem like contradictory thoughts and ideas. I'm not sure, but she is trying to figure it all out, and she's been looking at these novels for guidance, but they don't always tell her what's best for her, only maybe what's best for her characters. Anyway, all right, so let me share 3 movies I instantly thought of as I was watching this movie. The first one is one I just reviewed last week called Paging Mr. Darcy. It was the first of the Hallmark Lovuary series of Jane Austen movies. And while it's not perfect, it's pretty cute, but it does feature a younger woman and her experience with Jane Austen. And the thing that I thought was so odd about both of these 2 movies is, for self-proclaimed experts on Jane Austen, they absolutely didn't understand the romance element of Jane Austen, which I thought was kind of odd. Now, another recommendation is the 1995 Pride and Prejudice. There are several versions of Pride and Prejudice, and comment down below. Let me know which one is your favorite. Out of all of the P&P, and I've heard that the British don't like it when Americans say that, but out of all of the Pride and Prejudice adaptations, I think that 1995 version is probably my favorite. And then the last one is a recent version or adaptation of the movie or the book, Emma. Definitely check that one out. Gorgeous costume design, locations, fantastic cast. I really enjoyed that one. All right, that is it. When you get a minute, run over to my Facebook group and share which one of the Lovuary movies you're enjoying the most, or what you think is the classic Valentine's love movie. Have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.